life. I am your host, Kenton David Bell, and today we're going to talk about an aspect of law of attraction, or actually, for that matter, it's really kind of across the board whenever you want to manifest or change something in your life. When you're looking for true change, manifestation, transformation, we're talking about shifting your identity. And whether you are a beginner, a novice, intermediate, or an expert in deliberate creation and manifestation, you must know and learn how to shift your identity. So welcome to a journey of transformation, where we're going to delve into the profound truth about the law of attraction, deep into the heart of it. Many of us have heard that our thoughts create our reality, and that's true. But few realize the deeper layer. Our true power lies in our identity. To manifest the life you desire, you must not only change your thoughts, but must transform your very identity. In this video, we'll explore why and how the shift in identity is the key to unlocking the law of attraction. Now, this is something I know very well. It's near and dear to my heart. I've played with these concepts for decades now, going on 30 years. And I've been kind of flushing with money and resources, and intentionally at times, the opposite. There are things that we can learn when we don't have or we don't count on the external resources. And what I mean by that is, in our culture, in our country in particular, there's this drive to get more material. And I believe it's at the cost of, call it your essence or your soul. There's so much more to life than just money. Now, law of attraction works in every facet of your life. As a matter of fact, it's always in action, law of attraction. Over the years, I've run into so many people who say, I've practiced that and it just doesn't work for me. Well, whether it works for you or not, it's working you. Trust me, it is a law. That's why it's called law of attraction. So people who say, I don't get it, and what they're really saying is they don't believe it. And therefore, they're setting themselves up for, it's a form of disempowerment, really, because they're ignoring, or better said, they've been brainwashed out of the natural laws of the universe. So this is about reclaiming these natural laws that truly work. When I first started studying law of attraction, it was introduced to me by a woman who became a very significant partner in my life for about 7 years. And she had been studying the Abraham Hicks material for a long time. She introduced it to me, and at first I was a little skeptical, I must say. I had been a spiritual healer for some time by that point. And it actually challenged a lot of the beliefs I had. So it took me about a year and a half, 2 years of listening to it, the Abraham material, on a regular basis. And what I mean by that is I would listen to their tapes. This was back when we still had, we didn't have CD tapes, no. It was the disc. She would get the highlights from their workshops. And we'd listen to it. And I'd listen to them over and over, about an hour a day on average, I'd say. Some days a couple hours, skip a couple days, you get the picture. And then I started reading some of the books. One of my favorite books of all time that I probably have read more than any other self-help book is by Abraham, and it's called Ask and It's Given. Highly recommend it. I've had so many copies. I've read it so many places around the world. I've read it deep in the Amazon jungle. I've read it on a cruise ship. I've read it on a plane. I've read it in Europe. I've read it in Asia, here, there, everywhere. And I give away the copies usually. I bought probably about 20 of them total, or maybe even more. I give them away. Often they end up dog-eared. Anyhow, you get the picture. One of the main things that had to change for me, and when it did, it was like gangbusters. I would just even sit in my office in my first house that I lived in Sedona, and I would just get into an alignment, such a clear alignment that I would say, okay, I want 3 new clients today. And the phone would ring 3 different times with 3 new committed clients. And I started playing games with myself about how many clients, what do I want? And I was thinking small still back then. But things started happening. And when it broke loose, when the dam broke open, boy, did it break open. And people would call, and I had almost no advertising out there. The web was still a fairly new thing. I had a basic, very basic, simple website. And I wouldn't even ask how people found me. Sometimes I didn't want to jinx it. It seemed as if by magic they would show up. So, in order for that to begin to happen for me, I had to shift my identity. And it was a lot of struggle for me. Now, you don't need to struggle the way I did. I always say, if I can do this, anybody can do this. I tend to get stuck and stubborn in old patterns. So the material I teach is actually the material I need to learn the most. And that's when you find the best teacher is the teacher who is actually immersed in the material themselves, studying it, taking it in, and becoming what their goal is, their end result, what they're aiming towards. So keep that in mind when you're looking for somebody to help coach you. The law of attraction teaches us that like attracts like. So if you're thinking something, it's emitting a vibration out into the universe, kind of like a signal is what I call it, almost like a radio tower coming out of the top of our head. As a matter of fact, I think of the brain, the upper part of the body, the brain there, is more of a transmitter and receiver, much of vibrational thoughts and desires, much more so than a hard drive that stores all of our thoughts and memories. As a matter of fact, I don't think that's really stored in the brain at all. The brain is electric. We want it electrified. We want those neural pathways working for us and recreating them as we move through our day and move through our life and change our identity into what we're going for. Okay. There's a catch here. No matter how much you think about your desire, if your core identity contradicts those thoughts, you'll find yourself stuck in a cycle again and again of frustration. I've been there too. Anybody who practices has. So you have to have the contrast. We live in a dualistic world with contrast. We need the contrast in order to illuminate the choices that we're making. So if you're wanting to really harness the law of attraction, we can also talk about the law of assumption. And that's where you assume what you're coming into, which also helps create your identity. Let's say you're, just for example, let's say you're a starving artist, for instance, you're a painter, and you've been working at it for decades, and you've gotten pretty good. And all the people around you, your friends, are telling you that you're really good, but you're still having trouble selling your art. Maybe you get a showing here and there, but nothing really sells, even though your art is very, very good, and the price that you're asking for it is incredibly reasonable. Most likely, well, not most likely, I guarantee you, you probably have a starving artist identity, you see. And no matter how good you are, or how good your marketing is, or the person you hire, or the gallery, how popular the gallery is that you're showing in, if you're not in the alignment of being a successful, fiscally successful artist, you'll just still be starving no matter how good you are. Okay, now that's an example. So you begin to go into the self. We begin to look, first with the conscious mind, but much more importantly with the subconscious mind. We'll talk about the subconscious in another video. That's a topic that will take up a whole, 15, 20 minutes just to begin to scratch the surface of it. But right now, we're talking about the overall picture. So identity is much more than just your name, more than your past. It is deeply ingrained beliefs that you hold about who you are, what you deserve, and what you're capable of. It's a story you tell yourself every day, over and over again, running in the background, often running in the background unconsciously. For instance, if you see yourself as an unlucky in love person or not good with money, those beliefs form your identity. And this identity will continue to manifest the same old patterns, regardless of what you're consciously wishing for. Really take that in for a moment. Kind of feel into all of this within your inner world, your inner landscape. All of these videos are meant to activate, stir, bring new awareness into the listener. That's my desire for you, not just cerebral words. As a matter of fact, that we live in a culture that is so cerebral and shallow. We've forgotten how to think in the mind of God, the mind of the universe, the mind of Source, whatever you want to call it. But when we tap into that universal intelligence, the universal current that's everywhere, that is responsible, the lifeblood that has created everything we're in, that's when we begin empowering our thinking. If you leave this video, the one takeaway today I would recommend is begin to shift your identity into one who thinks with Source, one who thinks with God, one who thinks with the universal current, that innate intelligence that is responsible for everything here. And that you can begin to shift your identity. You must become the person who naturally attracts what you desire, magnetizing it to you. It's not about pretending or forcing yourself either. It's imperative that you are authentic with all of this. There can be a little bit of fake it till you make it, a little bit, but not in the deep core aspects of what we're talking about. It's about cultivating a new self-concept that aligns with your deepest aspirations. Who are you? What are you here to do? What is it you really want deeply? Not what you should want, but what do you really want? When you begin to shift your identity, your thoughts, emotions, and actions will follow suit. And so will the reality around you. Changing your identity is a journey that involves consistent effort and self-awareness. You must live it, sleep it, eat it, drink it every moment of every day, really. That's what it takes. But once you get into that, that's all you want. I guarantee it. Start by identifying the limiting beliefs that define your current identity, which is your reality as well. So you might even want to take a pen and paper and write down some of these things. Maybe make a pro and con column. What are your beliefs, your limited ones? And what are the beliefs that actually are serving you, that seem like they're positive, expansive, that you can take forward with you? Then you begin to replace them with empowering beliefs that support the life you want to create. This is where then we begin to get into where the conscious mind and subconscious mind begin to interact with each other. Once again, we're going to do a whole other segment on that. But to get going, you can use affirmations, visualizations, and daily practices to embody your new identity. So at first, you're not going to feel it, maybe not. For instance, with myself, if I start going about this, which I've done many times, kind of starting anew on this process that I'm speaking of, usually it takes about 3 days of consistent, like moment to moment tuning into it. I become obsessed with it. You must live it like it's who you are. And it takes about 3 days where, for me always, where there's like no results and I could feel it. It feels maybe even a little discombobulated, uncomfortable as you are beginning to shift into the process of shifting even, you see. But then you'll start to notice little things. You start to feel maybe more empowered or uplifted or energized around the idea. Maybe you start to see little things. Oh, I thought that, boom, there it is. I thought that, boom, there it is. Little things at first, maybe big things. But the key is to keep consistently on it. Once you build some momentum, boy, then you're like a freight train going down the tracks. But it takes a little bit to get there. But don't give up. These are laws and principles, tenets that are absolute. They work if you work it correctly. You also want to begin meditating on your future self. Who are you in that, when you reach that goal of what you're aiming for? Who is it that you are becoming? You know, who does that person, what does that person represent? How do they dress? How do they act out in the world? What do they do when they get up in the morning? Do they have a different morning routine than the routine you have now? They probably do. And if it doesn't look different, you probably are not really, well, one of two things. You're not probably really looking at it correctly. You're probably fooling yourself, or you're not reaching far enough. You're playing small. Challenge yourself here. It's important. You'll know it when you feel the big idea. Go for the bigger idea, not the small idea. Every time you go for the small idea, there's a saying, it actually takes more energy to play small than to play big. And I speak from huge experience there, huge and small experience, pun intended. It's so true. Go for the bigger picture, go for that bigger worldly game, and you will pull forth more inspiration, more energy, that creative energy that creates worlds in that desire, in that calling forth that goal. And then see, who is that person? How do they live? What do they do? How do they think day to day? In time, you start to rewire your subconscious mind here. That's the idea. You'll literally start to recreate neural pathways and mindsets that support it. Once again, you keep with it. Keep with it. Making your new identity feel natural and effortless before you know it. You know, there's a number of things I've done over the years that help with this. One of the things is years ago when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I studied method acting. And it's a style of acting where you bring up old sense of memory. And so you begin to relive these old memories that you've had in your life. And they call it kind of your treasure chest, these memories. And you live it as if it's happening again right there. For instance, one of the exercises when you get really good at it is you're sitting in a cold theater and with your eyes closed, but you're imagining that you're sitting under the sunshine of a hot, warm day. And if you're doing it well, you actually start to perspire. You can literally feel the sun on your face. So this is an example of what we're talking about. I use those tools and skills, those practices, the craft that I learned in method acting in my shifting my identity more and more these days. One of the other ones I personally like, it is the I am statements. One of the most powerful statements a human being can make is, I am that I am. I am that, comma, I am. And what it refers to as, there's a practice you can do where you go through your day and you, for instance, I'm looking at a chair right now in my office. I am that I am. So that is the chair I'm looking at. And what it starts to do is it breaks down the concept that the world is separate from us. Because we really are the true creators of our reality, period. And that the more that we practice these things, the I am exercises, and you can find the I am discourses, by the way, on YouTube. Just go ahead and, check it out on YouTube if you like. You can buy books on it. It's readily available. But there's a process where you can go through the I am that I am. If you do it for about 72 hours, and once again, 3 days, seems to be the magic number, 72 hours. You most likely, if you're doing it all the time through that 72 hours, pretty much every waking moment in your mind, something happens. There's a shift that occurs. And all of a sudden you start to experience the world as not separate from you. So these are just little tips that you can begin to incorporate into the idea of shifting your identity in the concept using law of attraction and law of assumption. All right? Now, when you change your identity, you're changing more than just your life. You're changing the world around you. I see this all the time, and my partner Billy and she and I will be talking about stuff, and we get in such alignment. She's been doing her work for decades before we met. I've been doing mine, and boom, we will literally see it show up just in moments later in our reality, and it's really something. Not just what looks like in our current little bubble, but we see the world stage shift before our eyes, and all of us have that ability. Don't think for a second that we live in a shared reality that is very solid and unmovable, unflappable. It's very malleable. It's not what you think. It's a holographic experience. The law of attraction responds not just to your desires, but to your essence, you see. By stepping into your new identity, you align with the flow of the universe, and miracles become a natural part of your journey. I've been a spiritual healer, life coach for decades now, going on 3 decades, after a very intense Kundalini awakening. I didn't choose it. I say it chose me. And I have lived through, long periods, like years at a time, of seeing miracles daily, like multiple miracles all the time throughout the day. I've seen people spontaneously heal of life-threatening illnesses and disease. I've seen things just magically appear almost out of thin air, thinking it, and boom, it's there. The phone rings. Somebody's calling, offering you exactly what it is. So trust me when I say this, that there really is no limit to this. It's only in your mind, and more importantly, the subconscious mind. Well, we're going to begin to wrap this piece up. We're going to do so many more videos on this topic and around this. But I just wanted to get this out there today. I woke up this morning. It's right now just almost 4 a.m. Been up since 2. I wake up early and I'm just buzzing. And I was like, what can I do to set the day going, set off the day? Really send a lightning bolt through my day and to my people out there on my list, people I've worked with, people I haven't met yet. I am all in. I want to eat this up. I want to eat life up. I'm just coming off of a cancer experience that was really intense, even though it wasn't always really that life-threatening compared to others. It really deeply transformed me. And I'm in my early 60s now, and all I want to do is interact with people at this level and just be in the mix, in that vibration, learning with adventures and discovery and love and joy and sharing it with others. Anyhow, I could go on and on. I love you all. I am Kenton David Bell. This is Soul Food and Fuel for Your Life. If you would like to contact me for any reason, go to my website, www.kentondavidbell.com. It's kind of a work in progress at the moment. Call me, area code 928-274-2026, or send me an email, kentondavidbell@gmail.com. Have an awesome day. Love you all. There's nothing you can do about it, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.